that we can use to discuss the applications and the technologies of companion robots. And in this first webinar, we'll have a talk by Professor Dympna and Professor Kathleen Murphy about the application of companion robots to patients with dementia. So both Kathy and Dympna have a strong background in working with people with dementia. They are part of the School of Nursing and Midwifery of the National University of Ireland in Galway. And Dympna is the coordinator of the Mario project. So Mario is a EU project that has the goal of building a real robot to work with people with dementia, to support people with dementia. So the webinar is organized in the following way. So we have a first 30 minutes talk about a topic, and then we'll have a follow-up session of 20 minutes where you are free to ask questions. So you can ask the questions by using the chat functionality on the webinar. Yeah, and then we'll answer the questions. Of course, this is not a very strict time, so we should try to stick to the 20 minutes time, but of course, if we need to extend by 10 minutes, I think it's fine. Okay, so let's start with the talk then.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Kathy, and this is Dympna.
Hi, how are you?
And we're going to talk to you today about what people with dementia and their carers have told us they actually want from companion robots. There's been an assumption for a long time that that really within Europe that people prefer robots that really look like robots, and that in Japan people prefer humanoid type robots. Today we're going to talk about those assumptions, and we're going to tell you about the research that we've done, talking to actual people with dementia and asking them what they want the robots to do and to look like. So we're going to share that with you and then have a discussion around those issues at the end. So I'm going to hand you over to Dympna, who's going to tell you just a little bit, first of all, around the context of the project and a little bit about dementia. Then actually we're going to take you through the interviews that we've done and tell you what we found. So I'm going to actually put up our PowerPoint.
Okay, well, while Kathy's putting up the PowerPoint, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the context of dementia. And, dementia is really a significant problem, as people know, worldwide. We have globally 44.35 million people who have dementia. And it's estimated really that there's one new case or one new episode every 3 seconds identified. So it's quite a substantial condition that's facing the world today. And in terms of somebody having dementia, and what are the symptoms of what is it characterized by, it really is characterized by impaired mental functioning, language and thinking, and as well as it can be accompanied with behavior changes, which can be quite difficult for the person with dementia, but equally challenging for the person who's caring for the person with dementia. In terms of the person with dementia, for them, developing memory problems really leads to a lack of confidence to engage in social activities. And they actually become embarrassed. They don't want to leave the home because they don't want their neighbors and their friends to know that they're actually having some difficulties remembering things. And equally, family members also feel that really they should protect the person with dementia and not let people know what's happening as well. So it's a significant burden both for the person with dementia and also for the families involved. And in particular, using normal technology can become quite challenging. This is challenging even if you're getting old anyway, but in the context of also having dementia, it becomes even more difficult. So we need more sophisticated and innovative, easy to use technology to help people with dementia and to help them to stay engaged in meaningful activities. Loneliness is a key problem for people with dementia, and it's estimated that 30% of people with dementia actually suffer from loneliness. So really, our whole focus in terms of the Mario project is to reduce loneliness and isolation for people with dementia. And that's how, if you like, the germ of the idea came about in relation to developing a companion robot, Mario. In terms of the project, as Andre said, it's a Horizon 2020 EU-funded project. And the aim, as I said, is to address the difficult challenges of loneliness and isolation. There are 10 partners from 6 countries involved, which are France, Italy, Greece, Germany, UK, and Ireland. And the project started in February 2015. We've just gone through the 18-month mark at the end of July. So it finishes in February 2018. One of the distinctive characteristics of the Mario project is that it is a user-led design. And we really are focusing on the needs of people with dementia and their carers and what their relatives tell us that they would like the Mario companion robot to be able to do for them. And then our technical colleagues and partners on the project are translating that information into the functionalities and the specifications for the robot. We have 3 pilot sites. We have one in Italy, which focuses on the acute hospital center. And one of the key uniqueness, I suppose, in terms of the acute hospital center is that people only come there for short-term duration. They're actually admitted with other comorbidities. So you could have somebody who has diabetes but also has dementia and is being admitted to the acute care. So they're the type of people with dementia that actually will be dealt with in the Italian context. And in the picture at the bottom of your screen, that's the Italian team with Mario at the hospital site. The other...
Can I hold on for a second? You shared the wrong screen. You didn't share the presentation. You shared only the PowerPoint screen.
Okay. So how do we...
Can you Alt tab to the Hangouts window and then share the...
Okay. Right. Well, Kathy's fixing that. Will I keep going with the conversation, or do you want me to stop?
Well, you can continue while she's working out.
Okay. So the second site is the UK. The Stockport pilot site is in the UK, and the focus here is actually on the community setting and testing one-to-one engagement with companion robots in the in the community. And really, in this context, there are people with dementia are more mild dementia because they're still managing to live in the community. And the final pilot site is the Irish pilot site.
Can we just check that you can see this, the PowerPoint now?
Yes, we can see. It's not maximized, but I think it's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
No, it's not. It's not changing with the presentation.
Yeah, maybe you can remove the presentation mode and just go slide by slide with the slides which are not maximized. Yeah, currently we're seeing the third. I think.
Okay, can you see the Irish pilot site slide now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, we'll stay on that and we'll just move it as it goes. Apologies, people, for not actually having the slides up. Okay, in the Irish pilot site, it's in long stay care residential settings. And here really the people with dementia have more moderate to severe dementia. And they're therefore at a more advanced stage. So from that, you can see we have 3 different pilot sites, which all have their own different challenges, but it also allows us to test Mario in 3 different contexts and to find out information in terms of what is relevant for people with dementia and what may work best in each site. So coming to the focus, really, I suppose, of our presentation today, we set about, first and foremost, about finding out what people want. People with dementia, their carers and their families. And across the 3 sites, we've done 48 interviews with people with dementia, 92 with carers. We've also involved relatives, and we've also surveyed carers in relation to their views. So we've done quite a lot of work so far to date, but it's not finished. This is ongoing work. It is really, the whole project is an iterative process whereby we keep going back to the people with dementia, we keep going back to the carers, we develop something based on what they tell us, and then we go and we bring back what we have and we say, okay, how does this work? What do we need to change? Will this, and give us feedback. They give us feedback and then we make the changes. So it's a circular process that actually is going on. So what we did in terms of interviewing people, and that's what I want to share with you today really, is the interviews from people and what they said. And for people with dementia, what they would like the robot to do for them. And I suppose in terms of, sometimes we have our own biases and we have our own viewpoints in terms of what we would like a robot to do. And may have wonderful ideas and very high ideas about what a robot can do, based probably, like me, on films that I would have seen and science fiction movies. But for people with dementia, they were really practical in relation to what they wanted. And these are some of the things they said. They want Mario actually be able to recognize people, their voices, and remind them of daily events and people. Because when they meet somebody and they're out, or somebody comes to visit them and they can't recognize or remember the person, they're frantically trying to do so. Having Mario there, or a mechanism to actually prompt them as to who the person might be, that would be just really helpful. Store the phone numbers and important events like birthdays and anniversaries. Play on demand their favorite music and movies. Remind them when to take their medications or to eat and to drink. And that's really important for people with dementia, because often they forget to actually have nutrition. They forget that they have a need to eat, and therefore they tend to lose weight. Contact help if I fall or if I'm unwell. And in terms of their own home, they really wanted to know the layout of their home, so that if Mario could tell them where the kitchen was or where the bathroom was, because as dementia progresses, their orientation as to where different location of different things within the home actually diminishes. A good one was locate my keys in my handbag. And as I always say, I mean, really, I don't have dementia, thankfully, but I'm forever forgetting where my keys and where I've left them. Know my favorite books and read it to me. Have interactive games that I could enjoy, but that they also help me retain my abilities. So there was a sense of having games on Mario that would actually provide cognitive stimulation, that would not just only be enjoyable, but would actually involve helping them to hang on to as many abilities as they can for as long as possible. Recognize their faces, again, knowing people, not knowing who people were. So if Mario could say, oh, this is Tom coming now toward you, or this is Mary, that would help. Interacting as well with other technologies in the household was something that people said. And in this, I suppose, regard, they said things like, we've got an awful lot more technology in our homes now, and an awful lot more, say, for example, remote controls for working the video, working the television, working the skybox or whatever. And these are quite complicated. And actually, if they could be integrated in some way, and that Mario could actually just say to Mario, I want to see BBC One Newsweek at please tonight. And that Mario would be able to do all that regulating for them, and it would be there and they wouldn't miss it. Other people said to us they'd like Mario to be able to motivate them and to encourage them when they're less inclined to do something. So they're less inclined maybe to go for a walk, or less inclined to actually engage in conversation. And that Mario would say, come on, let's do it. Come on, let's come and go, get up and go now, just for a few minutes. And that they felt might be helpful. Other people wondered if Mario could actually help them to put on their clothes in the right order, because they get muddled. And sometimes they put things on backwards, or they put things, underwear, on over their dress or their trousers. And if Mario could kind of remind them or prompt them, that would be good. In terms of music, they were interested in having some soothing music at nighttime that might gently wake them up also in the morning. A key thing for quite a number of people was that really if Mario could orientate them every day in a gentle way, so maybe start the day by telling them the date and the time and the year and what activities and events were planned for that day. Because as we know in terms of dementia, their short-term memory is totally disseminated. But so they really need help in terms of planning events and
okay. So Dympna, now one of the things that we were discussing is, sort of looking at the appearance of Mario. And at the beginning we said, sort of that there was differences in the way Europe and the way Japan were thinking around how robots should look. But what did people with dementia tell you about how they wanted Mario to look?
Well, from the interviews we did with people with dementia, they really wanted Mario to be as close to human as possible, really, from the feedback that they gave us. They wanted him to be able to have, a voice that was humanoid, that was clear, that was that they could identify with more readily. They actually wanted him to be able to change his clothes and to wear clothes, so that he actually might have, that they could put a shirt on him or a t-shirt or a top that would make him more friendly and again more human looking. They also wondered if he could have some hair. At the time, the Mario version that we showed people with dementia was quite very more basic than he now is. And when they saw that, they felt, some people, no disrespect to any manufacturers on the project, but some people described him as a bit like a tin can, and that they really wanted, that he was cold and like a fridge, and they wanted him a bit more human and a bit more warm, and make him more friendly. And certainly they wanted a human voice in terms of his talking ability.
Yeah. So they wanted Mario to look more human.
Yeah, they definitely wanted him to look more human.
Yeah. But they were also a bit worried about some things as well, weren't they?
Well, they were concerned about the fragility of Mario, and that would he be capable, if they accidentally bumped into him, would they knock him over, and would they break him? Or equally, they were concerned about their own safety. Would they fall over him, and therefore would they injure themselves? So that was one concern they had. They also had concern about the information that they would share with Mario. Who would actually have access to that information? And if they shared private information with one member of their family, so for example, if they said something to a daughter that they didn't want a son to know about, and Mario was present, and when the son came in the afternoon, if he then told the son what the person had said to the daughter, they didn't want that to happen. They were concerned that information might be shared that they didn't want to have shared. So they were really concerned about their private conversations and privacy, and who would have access to that information if Mario was collecting it.
One of the things when we were doing the interviews, Dympna, we wondered overall what people with dementia would think about having a robot. So what did they tell you about that?
Well, overall, across both the people with dementia and with the carers, both groups were very, very positive toward having a companion robot. And I have to admit that when I went in to do the interviews, I was somewhat concerned initially, thinking, gosh, I'm not sure, will people with dementia, will they really, welcome the idea of having a robot? And every one of them were very, very positive. They all felt that this was something that could make a real difference to their lives. And it would help them, for example, to stay connected. That actually sometimes, particularly in the context of long-term care, when people want to make a phone call or to contact a family member, they have to wait for a care staff to become free in order to, bring them to the phone or bring the phone to them. And they felt really that if Mario could even do something as simple as connect them to via Skype or via some type of interactive medium that would allow them to make a phone call themselves, that they would have the power and the autonomy and the control back to make those decisions. Now, it may sound very small to people to be able to do that, but for someone with dementia whose autonomy and empowerment levels are really reducing, this to them was something that they felt that would really help them.
So they were very positive then.
Oh yeah, they were very, very positive. And they felt though that for Mario to work, Mario really needed to know their likes and their dislikes and their preferences and in a way their life history, which would help Mario to know that what their favorite music was, what their favorite films were, and build up, if you like, that repertoire of individualized preferences that then made the conversation easier with Mario.
You were also interested in finding out what carers also thought of Mario, because obviously Mario in someone's home or in the place where they were living would actually have an impact not just on the person with dementia, but also with the carers as well. So you've interviewed the carers too, and what did they tell you?
Again, the carers, they were all very enthusiastic about Mario, and even right up, we would have interviewed the carers in and people with dementia in about the first 8 weeks of the project, and continually we've kept them up to date as to what's happening. But even when we go out to the site for some other meetings that we have at the site, staff would come up and say, well, where's Mario? What's happening? When is he coming? And so we were all very happy when he arrived successfully at the beginning of September, and they had a great, reception for him. But in terms at that time, at the early part of the project, what they wanted, again, similar to people with dementia, they wanted voice activation and face recognition. They wanted the ability to Skype. They also wanted the ability, if Mario could actually take photos of the residents. And that was something some of the residents themselves said as well, that, Mario could actually just, use the camera and take pictures for them. Important thing was recording visitors' names and details when they visited. And this was important as well, not only from the carers' point of view, but from the people with dementia, because sometimes they'd forget that somebody had come to visit them, and they'd feel nobody had come to see them all day. But in actual fact, that wasn't true. The people their family would have come to see them, but they just had forgotten it. And the carers highlighted this as the issue as well. And they said, well, if Mario could record that and say to them, well, Mary, actually, your daughter Tom visited you at 10 o'clock yesterday evening. And your grandchildren actually came to see you at 4 o'clock yesterday after school, that they felt that would be nice to be able to have that information. Again, orientating the person to time and place. Again, they felt they must have the person's life history. So a lot of the information from the people with dementia and from the carers actually correlated in terms of what they wanted. A key thing that was suggested by carers was they'd like if actually the whole notion of the comprehensive geriatric assessment, if that could be looked at in some way by Mario, and if there was some potential that Mario could help with that in some way. And this was something that they felt might be helpful for them as well. In terms of friendliness, and I suppose going back to the humanoid issue, they really wanted if Mario could smile and could express emotions and appear to make eye contact. And at that time, Mario's eyes were not very friendly, if you like, in terms of engaging people. But with the newer model that we've now since developed, and we've got, as I said, this has reached the sites in September, they're really more pleased with his eyes and the animated eyes, and they seem to be friendlier. They're still now coming up with more suggestions, and we'll look at that, but they are pleased with the improvements that we have made since the first version of Mario was shared with them. And again, Kathy, the same as with people with dementia, they wanted a humanoid voice. They didn't want the sat-nav in the car type of voice. Or it's probably a bit like SpongeBob SquarePants, whereas my robot wife, Karen, they didn't want that kind of...
and of course the hair keeps coming up.
And the hair keeps coming up. Again, they want, all to do with making him more friendly and more, fitting in the context of where he is.
Yeah.
But they also had concerns, just like the people with dementia. But
their concerns were
different concerns. Yeah. Some of the concerns, again, were same in terms of privacy and confidentiality and who would know the information. They were concerned about, again, similar to people with dementia, the robustness of the robot, because they felt that sometimes people with dementia can get very frustrated. And if they get frustrated with Mario and he's not doing what they wanted to do, they could hit him. They could actually hit him with a stick, or they could, and they were concerned, would he be strong enough not to fall over if that actually would happen? The differences, things that they raised were things like space. How was Mario going to be able to maneuver around the nursing home, for example? in terms of you have a lot of, you have tables and chairs, and you've got people and visitors, and your space around the bed is actually quite small. And this is also a key concern for the community, in terms of, you have a small apartment. What type of space is Mario going to occupy, and how is he going to be able to maneuver in that context? So they had some genuine concerns about space. They also were concerned about risk assessments, and really who's going to be responsible for Mario when he's in the nursing home, and what if his system crashes while he's here? How is he going to be rebooted? Who's going to be responsible for that? And then I suppose one of the key questions that often comes up is in relation to technology, is that are they going to be made redundant? Is Mario going to replace the need for a nurse, so that really in the long term that they're not going to have a job? And we were very, very clear with people really that, Mario isn't going to take over a nurse's role. Mario is there as in to accompany the nurse, to actually provide additional support for the nurse, so that actually they can free up and concentrate maybe on some other meaningful activities. But Mario cannot interpret care or oversee care. That really has to be from the point of view of the nurse.
Yeah. So overall, just summarising then, Dympna, sort of in terms of what Mario needs to be able to do to really meet the needs of people with dementia and their carers. What are the main aspects then that you would say?
I think overall what Mario needs to be able to do and would help people the most is to be able to prompt the person with dementia, to help them to maintain their memory, to be able to prompt them. And in a way, Mario has to be like a type of reservoir, a memory bank, which actually is able to store the details from their past events and reshare that with them again, so that it isn't forgotten and it isn't lost. Able to engage them in meaningful activities, so that Mario actually, as I said, has an idea of the preferences of the individual and is able to then respond accordingly, and is able to talk to the person, facilitate and support their choices. So if I want to play music, that Mario will knows that actually the person likes jazz or likes traditional Irish music, and is able to say, would you like to listen to some traditional music? And makes it easier and accessible to the person, so that the interface is a key issue here, that it actually allows them easily access this information. Connecting to people and family and friends is really important. And I suppose what I didn't say here is that it's also connecting to the community. They wanted to be able to know, for example, if some people were really into football or into soccer, and their local community team was something they followed all their lives. And when they actually become disengaged from the community, they actually lose that connection. And they wanted to have some way of actually accessing the local newsletter or the local sports results in an easy way. And that would make them feel connected. It would also give them a topic of conversation to have with not only just staff, but with family members when they came to visit them, or with friends. So really the personalized activities and connecting to the social dimensions of health really in social aspects was really important. And it had to be a really friendly and simple user interface to allow them to do that. I suppose overall, that really was what it meant for what it means for Mario as we go forward and develop those. And as I said, we have done work on them so far. We're now going back at this stage to get feedback on what we have done with the information they have. And it's really remarkable to see, because we've been lucky in the sense that people have really bought into this, particularly in the care homes, where they feel really an almost ownership of making Mario, that they're part of developing Mario. So they want to get it right and help us to get it right. And we're really pleased about that, because that's what we wanted.
Yeah. So overall then, what you've been told so far for people is that actually they want the robot to do all of those things, but they want a friendly, humanoid type robot.
That's what they're saying at the moment.
Okay.
But it'd be interesting to see if that changes, but that definitely seems to be what they want at the moment.
So the next steps are really to find out with Mario in real practice environments what people really see Mario to be?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, he arrived in September, and September really was focusing on acceptability and all the issues in terms of tone, his voice, the display on the screen, his eyes, were they friendly enough, all of that. And we're now taking feedback. We've collected feedback at the time from each of the sites, and we're collating that information. And the technical members of the team now are looking at that and seeing how we can make further changes. And we go back in November, which is only just around the corner, and we'll then test these new changes that are made to see, does that, has it make a difference, or do they want it something different, or how we can make it better.
And we're posting all that information for people up on those sites, and people can go and have a look at that. Okay, thanks, Dympna. Perhaps now we'll give people an opportunity to actually ask some questions, and to see, sort of what people want to ask. So we'll be very happy for people to ask us questions, and we'll be very happy to answer those.
So thanks, Dympna and Kathy, for the very nice talk. Yeah, maybe we can go directly to the questions that we have on the chat. Can you see the questions that we have there?
Not at the moment, we can't.
Okay, so I'll read them. So the first question is from Thomas. So I'll just read the question. Some dementia patients might believe the current date, for example, is a date that is actually far in the past. Can this not cause problems where the patients get scared because they are told that, for example, it's 2016?
Yeah, we can actually see that the question now is that the current date is a date that is actually far in the past. Sorry, could you just put that question up again? Yeah. Can this cause problems because they're told? Well, in our experience, that has not been an issue. I actually think with getting people to talk about the past, one of the things that people with dementia do is to draw on that long-term memory, and that stays in place longer than the short-term memory. So you're drawing on those memories. The person with dementia likes doing that. It can often make them feel in control again. So,
but I think really, Kathy, as well, we have to gauge it in terms of the individual. And for some individuals, I mean, this goes down to knowing the person. And the last thing you want to do is cause upset to somebody. And if it is a case of that orientating them to 2016 is really something that causes distress, then Mario needs to know that, and that in that context, it may not happen. So we have to individualize what we are doing so that we don't cause any distress.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Tom?
Okay, so maybe we can follow then to the second question. Thomas, if this answer your question, maybe you can reply. So the second question is, are there any other projects which are similar to Mario that you could mention?
Okay.
There are other projects behind and PAO as well. And it's funny you should ask that question, because Kathy and I have just come back from Japan, and we've been visiting residential care homes with people with dementia there, and they're actually these robots in a similar way to what we're actually going to use with Mario, but our robot is about 5 foot high and is much bigger than what they have, and even the prototypes that they showed us in the lab. Mario's is quite different in that context. And
the robot was about a foot high, and was by people's beds, you know, sort of. So there's quite a lot of differences, but actually some of the ideas are very
similar. So from that point of view, in terms of are there other projects similar to Mario? Yes, there are other projects, but I suppose we're biased. We firmly think ours is quite different in the sense that obviously what we are doing is very much the social engagement aspect, and also Mario is of a much bigger dimension in terms of his height and his size.
And his capacity to move around the unit from what we can see. Any other questions?
So, yes, let me just copy the questions to the Hangout chat.
Yeah.
So the other question is, you mentioned Mario being used in nursing homes. What are the intended interactions when Mario is working with multiple dementia patients at once? Group activities may be limited if one or multiple patients are in a wheelchair, referring to Let's Go for a Walk motivation that you mentioned earlier. So I think the question is how Mario interacts with groups of people.
Okay. I mean, a context and say, this is the pilot stage in terms of testing how Mario actually will work with people with dementia. So in this initial stage, it's actually one-to-one. It's a person with dementia with Mario. And within the 3 years of the project, we anticipate that that's probably the most we can do within that time span. But certainly going forward, the next logical step would then be to look at Mario working with groups of individuals, and particularly in a lot of the nursing homes and the long stay care settings, you have people who are 4 people to a room. And that context will present its own challenges in terms of how will Mario be able to work in that context in terms of knowing the individuals and able to communicate within that group. But for the current Mario project, we're focusing on one-to-one, Mario with one person with dementia at a time.
And I can see the next question that is around patients are in a wheelchair, referring to the Let's Go for a Walk motivation that you mentioned earlier. But of course, Mario will have the individual life history of the person that they are working with. Therefore, that will be tailored to that person. So often people living in residential care may have physical limitations that actually, you know, sort of will be taken into account in looking at the activities that is appropriate for that person. So that's why it's quite important that Mario actually works with individuals at this point and knows those individuals and what they can and can't do, and what the activities that is appropriate for that person is. So we have another question.
Is the height of the robot affecting interaction? Could a person in a wheelchair sustain interaction with a robot whose face is higher than hers is, for example? A lot of consideration went into developing the height and the specifications in terms of the structure, if you like, of the robot. Robosoft in their development did something like 1,000 interviews and testing in terms of how high the robot should be, and particularly for working with older people. And really the conclusion at the end of that work was that actually a robot being too tall and at face level was actually could be found to be intimidating, and too small, they could actually fall over it or trip over it. So the height really of Mario has been developed based on that information prior to the Mario project in terms of how best it would most likely promote interaction.
Yeah.
Now, on the Mario, which the robot, he has an iPad on his chest, which actually is about here. So even though he may be a bit taller than the person that's sitting down, they can interact at an easier level,
yeah,
at a hand level, on the interface on the chest. if they so wish. So again, we will see what the feedback will be from some people, because there are some people in the nursing home who actually are in wheelchairs. So that part of that, it'll be getting feedback from these people, and it may end up that we have to change the height. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be an issue.
Yeah.
But let's see.
Yeah. The next question is, do you think the patients might benefit from Mario using non-literal language, figures of speech, puns, saying a proverb or two from time to time? Part of what we are doing is gathering some real conversations with people. People with dementia will forget the next word, and they'll use a word instead of the actual word. So we have to understand the speech that people with dementia have, and we are working with partners who have a particular expertise around semantic web work and around speech and the ontologies that are required to help Mario understand what the person with dementia is saying, and the person with dementia understanding Mario. So, you know, sort of figures of speech and puns and proverbs, I'm sure there will be some there as we develop those different capacities to communicate.
And they'll make him more friendlier, you know, but it's, yeah, so I see that there probably will be, just take time.
Yeah. So the next question, Dympna, what is the estimated time to market for Mario as a product?
That's a really good question. In terms of, I can tell you in terms of the hope is, in terms of cost wise, that, you know, when it reaches full production, it'll be anything between 5,000 and 7,000 in terms of cost. But in terms of the estimated time to market for Mario as a product, would be beyond the duration of. We wouldn't see that Mario would be available really at the end of the 3 years.
Yeah.
That it would take at least another year or two, probably after that, before it would become available as a product. But I'd have to refer to our experts on the team in relation to the marketing and the exploitation for that one. Yeah.
And of course, the 3 years of the project is about making Mario better, you know, sort of, so we will build on all of the knowledge that we have from the project to try and make sure that Mario is as useful as it possibly can be over that time. Any other?
Oh, I just lost it. There was another one there, I think.
So one is, which research directions do you aim to answer with Mario from the nursing research standpoint?
Yeah. Well, part of what we perspective is, can Mario help a person with dementia stay connected? Can that actually impact on perceptions of loneliness? We're very keen to examine that impact of Mario on a person's quality of life, on their perceptions of loneliness, on being able to keep that person connected with their family and friends and community. So we are really looking at the social aspects of Mario as part of the research, and really looking to see whether in fact that can enhance the person with dementia's experience on a day-to-day basis. Okay. For example, if the patient leaves the house and gets lost in the basement or upstairs, how does Mario notice that?
Okay, Mario noticed the person just saying not sleeping, was left in the house with a carer or a friend. Okay, in terms of leaving the house, I'm afraid Mario is actually a housebound robot. So from that point of view, he won't be leaving the house environment. In terms of people falling or and accidents, Mario actually can detect when somebody hasn't moved for some time. So in that context can actually contact medical help for this person to come. He also has, at the front of him, he actually has a little button that if somebody happens to fall in front near Mario, they can actually press that as well. So he does at the moment have some contingencies in the event that somebody does have an accident or somebody does fall. If somebody goes missing, at the moment we don't have a GPS system on Mario yet. It may be something that actually does evolve, but at the moment it wasn't something that came up in any of the work that we've done with the people with dementia or with carers.
Yeah. But one of the things that we do hope to be able to monitor is sleeping patterns. So we hope that that will be part of the project in the later stages of the project to actually monitor how a person is sleeping. So we hope to gather that and to feed that information back, because obviously sleeping patterns is a very important part of
so we're envisaging that we probably will use some sleep sensors in relation to that, and that's ongoing work at the moment in terms of, because there's a lot of debate out there as to what's the most effective sleep sensors. If you put one on the bed, does that really capture if someone is getting out and wandering or not? Because most likely it doesn't, and yet how do you also protect someone's privacy in relation to if you use cameras to watch what's going on? So really, this project has thrown up a lot of issues about the ethics of robots in terms of care delivery, and in a new way that hasn't actually been tackled in other projects. So that's a key, if you like, outcome of Mario will be having some guidelines in place in terms of the ethics and privacy issues of the use of robots in this context.
So we think we're at the end of the webinar. That's all the questions that have come in. We thank everybody who's attended for their engagement and for their interesting questions, and we look forward to you joining the webinars from Mario and to having further discussions about the whole issue of companion robots and their role in the care of people with dementia. We'll hand over to you, Andre. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Dympna, for the very nice talk. So we should have our next webinar soon, probably around sometime around December or January. Still, we need to see the next topic. But we'll keep you informed by the mailing lists. So we're disseminating the webinars in the robotics worldwide lists and also in the Mario project social media and website. So if you want to know more about Mario, please join our social network contacts, and feel free to contact us if you have any questions or if you want to have further information about the project. So that's all for now.
That's it. Okay, thanks.
Bye.